started. All right. Yes, you are the first ones. And we are streaming this. So we'll start our proposals for your budget.
Okay, morning everybody. Kyle Burmester, Bannock County Public Works Director, and
Tyson Coster, Assistant Bannock County Public Works Director.
Before we start going through each of the budgets, just for the little bit with the the sheet that I handed out, we will be looking at asking for 3 new positions. 2 of them would be in Road and Bridge, a pavement markings and signs supervisor, and we'll go through them a little bit as we go through each department, and a mechanic. The other one's a landfill manager. I'm also looking that, I don't know if I want to go through them as we do them or some grade adjustments. I don't know if that'd be a good thing for right now, or
You talked about it.
so grade adjustments, I have 2 for Road and Bridge. I'd like to adjust the assistant directors from a pay grade 15 to a 16. That'll be a 9% increase on that position. And the shop supervisor from a 13 to a 14, which is a 7% increase. That aligns them better with our org chart and where they actually, I feel they should be. As for on your sheet that you're seeing, operator, senior, mechanics, that's still kind of up in the air on which way HR and the commission would like to go with on which way we do that. I know part of that little packet I gave you shows I was working with Ryan in HR on a 3 1, 2s and 3s, so that operators and mechanics as they came in would be at the pay grade they're at, but they'd have more room as they gain knowledge to move into different spots. I don't know if we have a pay grade or a step schedule figured out yet with anything. Is it 10, 20?
For these meetings, we're currently working off the
current
salary table, just because we haven't changed it yet.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, them are kind of up in the air on what and which direction we're going to go with the operators and mechanics on there.
But this has it how you're wanting it, 9, 10s, and 11s. or
Yes.
whatever. Okay.
Yes, what you see in the budget, the only thing is I changed the very first that's in blue.
We're not in color.
Oh,
'Cause we
is
use
it a
too much
shaded?
paper
Is
and-
it?
yeah.
Oh,
We're cheap.
I'm trying to figure out how I can.
So you're still in A budget? You're still in A budget when you're talking?
Yeah,
I think I'll just skip it for now.
I think I'll just skip that, or we'll visit a little bit more on that and start out with Road and Bridge. Which is your first department that you guys have, and I can start out on whatever.
Well, we have everybody, so how about Road and Bridge?
Okay,
That's the first one I'm on is Road and Bridge.
okay,
So we're
perfect.
going to B budget side of it now?
Well, now we'll, yeah. So, Road and Bridge, like I said, on the A part of it, the assistant director changed from a 15 to a 16, with the grade adjustment, and the shop supervisor from a 13 to a 14. The rest is, we put a 7% increase for everybody. That's pretty much a pay grade change. That's where I was saying with the pay grades 1, 2, and 3. I don't know how that's gonna how that'll end up or whatever, but that's what we put on for here. With that increase, and from what it's not exact numbers. On yours, it says 181. The changes I was talking about in the very top portion, and I don't think yours is even shaded, is it? Okay.
No, because I
Um,
changed yours to mine.
The very first, there's a sevens on the first about 5 lines. Them have no increase. And the one that's an assistant director is just the 9%. So with the little bit of changes in there, it's 153 difference instead of the 181. But that's really estimated number. You don't have that on the side either, probably either.
We try factoring the benefits too, so that's.
So on ours,
Benefits.
we put off to the side in the notes of, with the help of the spreadsheet from Christie, with them salaries, adjustments, with benefits and stuff, we have a difference of 153,000, but you're not seeing that.
Okay. Were you comparing that to this year?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and
So-
that's this year with the changes in the 2 that I brought up and the operators and mechanics.
Okay, so for the sake
7%.
of the commission, last year's salaries were $1,526,000. This turned out to $1,767,000. If you look at your totals. And that's just salaries. And then we'll go down and figure out, and then the benefits are about 112 more. So. Do you have anyone retiring that we need to anticipate?
We have 3 put in there.
Okay.
We have 3 people that we've put in with an amount of 75,000,
Did you get those numbers from payroll? Or did you
Roughly,
just guesstimate it?
rough numbers from payroll.
yes. We had the one that we had in last year, and then I got updates on the other 2.
Let me, so I've got, I just want to make sure we have the right people so that when we get closer, we can make sure we have the money.
So tell me again the 3 new positions that you wanted to hire?
2 will be in road and, in this one that we're looking at, road and bridge. One is hiring another mechanic and a pavement markings and signs person.
So on that mechanic, about 6 months, well, it was actually been longer than that. We had the mechanic in there, and we wanted to move it to roads going into last winter because we knew we were gonna be short. So we come in and move that position, and we're gonna go 6-8 months and see how it went. We need that other mechanic still. With adding everything from the event center, the shop's just, because now we're doing everything, all their stuff, their gators, lawnmowers. We've taken on their full fleet.
But now we've got the equipment operator, so you can't give that up to go back.
Yeah.
So you're, okay.
So we're asking to add that
That's what
mechanic
we're
back
asking.
in.
And that's the explanation I need on every one of these. Because right now, you're just saying, I want to give these guys a raise. And there's no reason, to me. There, you know, there's got to be an explanation of why they deserve not just longevity, but this is how we have to run our department, which you just said. This is the replacement of this one. But if I just look at the sheet that you handed out, I don't get any of that. So my first inkling is, I don't have an excuse to give you what you're asking for.
So what's the justification on the pavement marking and signs?
Because we have around 6, oh, did you get some numbers? We got 3,300 signs, 2,200 signposts. The thing is it's not just a person. I mean, before we were kind of saying, well, do you just need another person? It's somebody that's trained in the MUDCID or the MUTCD, all our sign regulations. We do traffic counts that we are supposed to do every 5 years at least. We're kind of getting out of compliance with everything with signs. Speed studies. If there's not a speed study on that road and somebody gets pulled over, if there's not a speed study, they probably won't get a ticket.
They may get a ticket, but they could fight it in court and win.
Our signs are supposed to be rotated out, reflectivity is supposed to be checked. It's just getting to be such a, it's a lot of work, and so we kind of put a guy already in there doing this work. But to ask this person to, stay up with all the regulations, trainings, everything for that kind of position. We've had, in the past, we had 2 people in a sign department with another one helping them, up to 3.
They just didn't have the
Okay.
time.
No, we didn't.
No, they had the titles and everything.
Yeah.
My question is, why are they at 12 when a mechanic's 9? Mechanic has to have the education and the tools and stuff. What does this person have, or what's required of them that's more than the mechanic for 3 brackets?
So that person's basically running their own department. Really, the sign department should be its separate entity. I think in the grand scheme of things, eventually the sign department should have its own budget that's separate from road and bridge.
Why?
Because of all the regulations and that. It's
Well,
part,
but you can have it delegated as that person. You
Yes.
don't need to pull them out separate. But they could have their own budgets. We could give them their own.
yeah,
budgets.
that's what I'm saying, is
Okay.
necessarily their own, not necessarily their own, but they need their own budgets.
And then the supervisory part, they may be their own department, but they would still answer to one of you two,
Correct.
in my opinion.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
it
right.
just, to me, if you look at the grade 12 for an individual that doesn't have to go to school and have the tools and stuff as a mechanic, I just don't understand
That would be the same grade as our
the difference
the weed supervisor. That's
that they're
But the
asking
weed
for.
supervisor supervises people
Yep.
and hires and, right?
No,
I don't disagree with you.
I was like looking at that.
I was just trying to look around for a comparison, and that was the only one I could think of that would be.
So we kind of put it in comparison with our assistant operation managers.
Did Brian review this?
Did what?
Did Brian review that position for a grade? And he agreed?
Well, yeah. We didn't get much response on
Kinda,
it, but
sorta.
yes.
Okay. If you had to prioritize which position you wanted, which one would you want if you only got one? Because you're not going to be the only one that's wanting
Right.
the positions.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, and I'm gonna say this to every single department, in my proposal, there will be no new positions unless they're extremely well justified and, because I wanna pay the employees that we do have before we spread ourselves even more thin. And so I don't think that there will be more than a couple total across the county that I'm gonna propose. It's just not gonna happen this year. We need to pay the people we have, unless it's really well justified.
And I agree with that. I would say for me then, for mine would be the sign guy. Because you can't outsource that work. We could look at outsourcing some of the mechanic work, but the sign work, I know in the past it's been talked about that you can run down and get it, but planning and zoning just found this out. Just their address markers, there's no one in this area that builds them. So by the
But-
time they ship them in, they're $25 a placard, where our guy can make them for 12.
And they're out 4 to 6
4 to
months.
6 months.
So when they need a placard to put on there, because there's so many houses going up, you can't go across the street and just go pick it up. It's the way a lot of things are. On what you said, Jason, the thing I have with the employee is that's why we have tried to make our budget so that that wasn't a cost. We tried, and that's what's hard is nobody's gave us, whether it's HR or whatever, gave us a goal to what to come to help the commission or auditing to be able to afford people or this or that. So we just had to kind of go on our own, try to figure out what methods we could change, what things could we do to be able to like get a sign person full-time. So we tried to lower our budget to match that so that so it's not an added cost.
We tried to offset our B budget where we could to make up for the needs in the A
Perfect.
budget.
And that's part of the explanation.
yep.
That's what we're asking for.
Yeah, that's really what we're looking for.
And that's why I say, when you come in and you just hand me this, all I see is percentages. I don't see reasoning behind it, and that's
Yeah.
what we're
So
asking
you don't
for
have
now.
the one we submitted.
No,
We just
We
got,
can't use yours because we have to put it in our format.
Okay.
So that's what's hard is because
We have all
ours
the
has
notes
all the
and
notes on it.
explanations
and that's what we're here for
But
right
she
now, is
copied the
for
notes
you
on
to
it.
share
That's what I was
them,
asking, if that's.
them
stuff
things
we-
with us.
Okay.
It's just not color.
And that was just to kind of minimize all the notes and everything the page I gave you is
Oh.
just,
As I look at yours, I see a total increase of 267,000 over the last year's budget. So to me, it does seem like they went in and
Well, and
degraded or downgraded their total request.
And
to make
with
it
that,
fit.
there's another, so we tried to eliminate two sections of our budget to see truly where we were at. Because I upped the rebill line item in our budget to reflect, so that shows a bottom line dollar on our budget. Even though that's gonna be revenue coming back in eventually. But right now, it makes our total budget go up. So that 260 he's looking at, part of that is other departments' money.
yeah, that's all our rebills.
It's revenue that matches it.
We just put.
So what you're saying then is you should be revenue neutral over last
That's what
year's.
we're trying to do, but the fuel makes it look,
Right. No, I understand the fuel. But I guess that was my point is if you're showing with the
because
fuel
we
increase.
went with like $8 and who knows, it might be $9. But yeah, that's the rebills on there, so that kind of throws the bottom number off.
Yeah, we work to try to be revenue neutral on where we, or budget from where this year to next year. Between the two, between A and B.
A lot of these we haven't changed from,
Hang on real quick.
Oh, okay.
Salary stipends, or cell phone stipend. You
mhm.
want to add one cell phone stipend? Everybody else has phones, right? So what's the rationale for that?
So this is the one that already got approved this
Got it.
year.
Okay,
We had an employee that has one, but he has a hearing impairment.
right.
So he
Okay,
has the-
Perfect. Say no more.
So he returned his county phone and,
Perfect. I just forgot that.
where's,
Overtime the same, extra help the same, no changes really in there, then going on to our B. We've got a couple things like, like I say, we've tried to stay pretty much the same. Shop supplies, we went from 30 to 50. We've already spent about 23,000 in 6 months. It's just, things have been going up.
So why have you budgeted your road supplies the same? Or did I miss? No, yeah, you're at 389, 261, same as you were last year. How come you're not bumping that up?
because it would, so some of these we tried to take where we're at currently and what our 6 month is and try to keep that budget. Can we get done what we need to do even with the inflation next year without trying to, otherwise we're gonna be raising every line. I mean, if we take the cost of operating, everyone would go up. It's how can we change methods and means to stay,
So it's been
to make that number work.
based off the 6 months too.
Well, that's what I'm just checking on,
Yeah.
because I'm seeing your, what I think, your small one, your shop supply is going up $20,000. So how are you able to keep your road supply, which to me, that would be a much more expensive supply.
But
line.
road supply is more of, only governments and municipalities are buying those types of things, whereas your shop supplies, they're common goods,
Yes,
right? And so
yes.
common goods are going up much faster than what,
Well, like
your
road supplies, that's
are-
more like in our oil budget and stuff, that's the
They're-
big,
you're gonna
the
do less
big
because
money
those are-
in fixing roads.
Your road supplies.
This is just,
Your road supplies are bituminous products, so most bituminous products have had anywhere between a 12 to 25% increase due to inflation. So you're gonna need to cut and do 12 to 25% less work this year. So in theory, if you're going to cut 12 to 25% of those materials because you can't afford them, I mean, you're gonna buy the same amount, but you're gonna do 12 to 25% less work.
Yeah.
That's basically what you're gonna say. So therefore, you're actually gonna have a cut in other operations because you guys aren't gonna be as busy this year because you can't afford it, right? I mean, that's what we're getting at. You're not doing the same amount of work. We do work. We wanna do expensive work when materials is the cheapest at its lowest point, because then you're getting more bang for your buck. If we're not in need of doing it, it's emergency work only is what we need to focus on in this next year, because then if inflation hopefully ever corrects and cost of materials drop, you buy all the stuff and do the work when you have cheap materials, not when it's expensive materials, right?
And that's what we've kind of done, is what has to be done,
Okay.
what was the want and what's the need, and that's,
See, and so that's what I say is then it's gonna,
So, to go, just to put it in simpler terms for myself, you've basically forecasted a roughly 25% reduction in production next year. And that's an arbitrary number,
as
25%,
at
but
this point right now, unless something changes. The reason why we're able to do the same amount of work pretty much this year is because of, state funds coming down to us.
Yeah.
Next month, we're supposed to look at we've been approved for 1.4 whatever million.
well, the problem is when you put that is that for the Parks Road project?
No, that's just state money.
Just state
Money
monies,
that just come
is
in.
when they gave you that 1.4 million, they were anticipating that, it would cost X amount per mile to do, and that's why you got 1.4 million. The problem is that's now gone up, so even though we're getting money, it's gonna do less than what we actually thought it was gonna do. So
No, and what I'm
still,
saying is
you know,
last year we got 808,
880.
880 or whatever,
We've got a
that,
couple windfall monies.
Yeah,
that's helped us not do more, but just try to do the same as what we
maintain what we do.
maintain, and depending on what funds, where they go and what's needed, we haven't got the 1.4 yet, that's next month. And that's the state, excess.
So that would need to be budgeted into this year then, because we're not
They
gonna.
want to use it this year, yeah.
Well,
So
I
what
mean,
we looked at is if there was some funding there, maybe like the equipment or something we had it could help pay that instead of it coming out of this, but it's kind of,
When we get that money before we open the budget for it, they'll have to come before.
Well, what I'm saying is if we got 800,000 in this last fiscal year, the fiscal year we're in right now is when we got 800 grand. And then this year we got another the state just operates in a different fiscal cycle than we do because they are in July. Really, we should put that 1.1, whatever, that should go into this year's budget. So we're not opening budgets, and we should actually then use that as operational funds in projects, and you should look at it this way, is when you're buying road oils and doing other stuff, that's actually where you're gonna use that money to offset in those projects. So you'll have like your emergency, you should have like, for roads, emergency fixes, you're gonna have $200,000 or $300,000. You're gonna have whatever. But then all those roads that you wanna try and get done, that's where you're using that money. So it's a one-time money, but you're using it in a project-based approach to where if it's available, you're gonna do that. Because then that way, you're not using it to base your operations budget, but you're not using tax dollars then for projects that you have those funds for.
Right.
Just because you get $1 million doesn't mean we go buy a brand-new piece of equipment
Yeah.
or, give everybody raises. But what you do is that operational line item is where, in those capital projects, that's where you burn that off at.
Long time.
But that's what I'm saying is I would use that there to offset your overall cost and tax ask.
We need to keep monitoring fuel. We might need to,
We just need to quit driving right now, is basically a lot of states, municipalities, that was one thing I was reading this weekend. A lot of them are just saying, hey, if you can't zoom into it, that's what COVID taught us, we're not going there and we're not doing that.
yeah.
I mean, that's we need to seriously look at that for this year, because if fuel costs are gonna continue, they're saying fuel costs could hit $7 a gallon for regular unleaded by the end of the year, or the end of the summer.
So you've got a new line item, vehicle repair, winter cutting edges. Is that,
So we're just trying to get a true cost of what winter maintenance costs us.
okay,
So right now, all of everything's in vehicle repair, the 453 line item. So we just want to pull 100,000 out of that line item, not raise it, and just make another line item to track, so we can get a better tracking of what winter maintenance has cost us. Because right now, we're tracking our salt really good. But the problem is, everything goes in the billing system under cutting edges. Well, there's so many different types of cutting edges, it's so hard to break down what did winter maintenance cost us.
okay. So if we put this in, you're gonna have to just let us know what to expect to come out of there, so that we can help make sure
Well,
that it's all coded appropriately.
And you took that 100,000 out of your vehicle repair?
Yeah, so we're just, because that's where it's at right now, and that's where that money is being
Okay.
spent.
Yeah, it
Well,
didn't-
it's not added.
Vehicle repair didn't make sense to me, because you went down $50,000.
And you claimed
That's
inflation on that one.
Maybe inflation went the, no, that's why. It did go up, but there's 100 of it went to a different line.
Yeah.
So then,
Because right now, we don't have that line item, so that money's still in that one.
Yep, got it.
so you're adding an extra 50,000.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
But if we
There,
get-
that's the inflation part.
gotcha.
Is that something you want to do now? If you guys have the invoices already pulled, we could go in and do some corrections on that, just to start getting a history. That would give us 2 years' worth of history by the time we implemented this. So keep that in the back of your head.
Okay.
We can talk about that after budget.
Okay.
And then fuel prices. This is as good a time as any to talk about it. All vehicles that are driven home, I want justification of why they're driven home.
I mean, there needs to be, I mean, yeah.
So should we set a separate meeting to review all of those? Have Brady set a meeting,
Well, I just,
or do you want it now?
well, if you don't have that now to talk about for just a minute, then we can have a separate meeting and talk about. But
So we have,
everybody that drives vehicles home, there needs to be justification for it. And the fuel prices are what they are. That's a big expense for the county. And so if you don't have it all written down, I mean, that's been talked about before, but when it was talked about that, we'd talk about it at budget time.
Mm-hmm.
But,
are there we have the few that are emergency response. We have one for our shop. Me and Tyson have vehicles that we drive home. Our shop foreman does. Our road foreman does.
Do you guys ever respond to the shop before you go to the site, wherever you're gonna take it to?
Not usually.
and what's emergency response?
Yeah.
So they have to go out. Us, it's more,
Fire, flood, winter storm.
ours is, we're in different parts of the county when we're either before we get to work or after we leave work. Whether we're looking at a new subdivision or whatever, we're traveling around quite a bit. Or if something, a piece of equipment, snow, some accident, we've been out on accidents. Somebody ran out of fuel because they didn't fill up their rig, different things like that. The shop guy is because he's on call every day of the week except Sunday because he's also for the landfill. Been there open 6 days a week.
Well, what's in his vehicle that so typically when you have like a response vehicle, you're having it because that vehicle is your contact truck, has all your tools, your welders, your compressors, everything on it.
Every one of them's got tools, fuel tanks.
So the whole thing is again, those are really expensive vehicles to be running back and forth. And so if you showed on justification of miles on those vehicles, I bet if you went and took those vehicles that drive home every night, that 2/3 of the miles that drive on those vehicles will be running back and forth to residents. I can almost guarantee it. So typically in an emergency response vehicle or something like that, a contact truck, you'll forward place an equipment vehicle at the landfill that will just be there. The keys will be inside. If somebody's responding because the landfill's open 6 days a week, the vehicle's there. It's your responsibility that you're on call, and you can be reimbursed for the mileage that you'd have to drive in on call for an emergency. No, on an emergency.
I disagree.
On an emergency, if you're on call and you're called in on an emergency, you can have it to where you can say, hey, we can claim this as pay because this person, it's outside your typical hours, you're gonna be overtime, you're gonna do whatever. A lot of companies will set that up because it's an emergency. Not that it's an everyday thing, but hey, it's Sunday, I'm sitting in church, power thing is on fire, man, and I'm gonna drive in 20 miles from McCammon out to go to the landfill. Yeah, that can be because you did something outside your normal, your overtime, or whatever. That's an emergency. That can be justified. The whole thing is when we just make the claim of, well, it's an emergency vehicle, we have somebody on call or whatever, that's where I really start having a problem, because if I start looking at usage logs on those vehicles, I guarantee if we ran it, you will probably spend more mileage on the roads for people traveling back and forth to home than they actually do driving the vehicle to work. And that's something that needs to be addressed, because
Well, it
that's
needs to
expensive
be-
right now.
That needs to be addressed also, that we have people on call that we don't do anything with.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing.
You want somebody to be on call legally and to stay in town
No,
and
no,
do
you're-
that?
We're in compliance with FLSA on call.
So this
Unless
would
you
be,
guys are doing something
so this would be my discussion then too.
For what kind of on call though? Are you just saying the whole
We're getting off
department
topic
on
of
call?
budget. Let's deal with budget because we're never.
Well,
gonna
so
get to
what I
budget.
want you to do is submit to us who drives vehicles homes and their justification, then we'll talk about that.
Well, and it brings up though too for that, because of how many people we have on call and where we have on call. What are we doing? Okay, so how many times in this last year were people called out? That's something too that we need, because that's something too that bothers me. I worked a job, it drove me nuts. We had like 7 people on call, and I think the most that we ever had in a 3-year period that I worked for that company, we had one person get called out once, and it was the most aggravating thing ever, because you were on call, and yeah, you had to just stay close to home. Yeah, I got paid like, it was like whatever insanely wasn't worth it. But do we have too many people on call that we're doing? That's the other point to that, is how many people do we have on call? Are we taking vehicles home because they're on call? Well, do we really need all these people on call? Do we have enough things that we do have on call? Are they responding to emergencies that it shouldn't be road and bridge it's actually paying for it? It's actually an emergency services, through Wes's office. But we have to identify those things. So that was for me. How many people we have on call, how many times they're called out, and then who's driving and where they're driving. That would be interesting.
Okay? There's an assignment.
Yep, I agree.
If everybody's good with operating, how about on your capital? You've got, what's your priorities there, just in case? I mean, it might be okay, but you've got a new roller for 205.
And a balloon payment on a grader.
Okay.
That was one we were gonna discuss, was the balloon payment on the graders. So we have a grader that's coming due this year. It'll be at the end of its 5-year lease. We have to visit the graders, are one we feel like we should buy and run out another 5 to 7 years. So we've either gotta pay that balloon payment or keep the lease payment to turn that machine back in and lease another one.
What have you had on maintenance on those, during those 5 years that you've had to pay for?
The graders?
Yeah.
We haven't had much besides general maintenance.
So that would be the question then is, you have a road grader, you have one that has a pumpkin go out on it, or, throw a cylinder or rod or something. So is it worth the, that's, and I get, I get that. What's the risk of,
I analyzed the graders pretty close, and I I don't wanna go back to the 22-year-old grader that we
Yeah,
heard
let's not
about
have the
for years,
1984 grader.
But I just don't feel like we're being fiscally responsible just rolling that lease payment over. When that machine, we could purchase that machine for the 185 and run it for 5 more years and save us that extra 200,000 in lease payments.
How much is the lease payment each year?
So right now they vary anywhere between like 31 to 36, because the newer machines, of course, have went up with inflation. So
So our existing lease payment is 36,000 a year?
I think that
150
blade is
for 5.
31, 32.
So my question then would be, is what's the total amount of maintenance that we would do on it? That's the risk that you're looking at right now. That's the gamble that we're,
Because another 5-year lease at 36,000 is equal to your payoff.
But the only problem with that is we have equity in the machine because we bought it. So when we trade it off, we're gonna have an extra at least 150, 200,000.
So I talked to Kat said if we bought that machine for the 185 and we're going another 5 years, what is that machine gonna be worth then? Projected hours, we kind of projected it out, and I'm thinking in another 5 years, that's probably a $90,000 to $100,000 machine. So we'd be getting that trade-in that we own at that point to roll into another lease.
how much is that, if we buy it for 185, what's that machine worth right now today? What does it appraise at?
The used market's insane, so I haven't had it appraised, but I'll bet 250, 230.
So why don't we buy it for 185, roll it over and sell it the next day, burn out the $100,000 worth of equity, and have $50,000 worth of payments for a brand new machine with no maintenance? That's what I'm getting at here, is we have equity in a machine.
Kind of what I was thinking.
We have an equity in machine, and this is what I'm getting at, is the thing that costs us is what we just talked about with mechanics and all these other things. These are peripheral expenses that we're going off of. And why I'm not saying that we want to be fiscally irresponsible, but if we have $150,000 in a machine in equity right now, you're going to buy it for $150, even if you had $100 in equity out of it, and then you take it to your next 5-year lease and you still owe another $50,000, and you have no maintenance.
You're ahead.
That's why you're going ahead. That's why they do that. Now, again, you're gambling on the maintenance side of the house. If we don't do any maintenance on it, if we buy this machine today and we don't do any maintenance for the next 5 years, other than just your general maintenance, which is we're gonna eat that no matter what. We got that. That's fine. But if as soon as you blow something major up, what's the odds of us blowing something major up? That's the question. That's what we're looking at, because that also goes back to your mechanics that you're hiring and other stuff that way. If we're blowing things up, we're gonna have to have mechanics fixing it. But if we're not blowing it up and we're just doing general maintenance, we don't have, it's not an emergency, it's not that's
That's why when you look at our equipment, the graders are one I feel we should buy, and compactors and dozers and that we shouldn't. That's kind of
Just
where we
because of
were
the
at.
hours.
The hours and the maintenance and the cost, we've identified those are very costly.
So the extra $150,000 you want to spend this year, where are you getting it from?
The extra 100.
If we're going to spend $185,000 this year instead of the $36,000, where did you pull the 150 from?
We cut our capital over last year.
Yeah, they're down from 515 last year.
yeah.
You
to
can't-
390 this year.
Okay.
Yeah, but you can't look at capital that way.
No.
Capital's one-time money. You might
Yeah.
have it this year, may not have it next
Yeah.
year.
That and road oil budget.
But we can look and see where reserves are and where money's at, and then it might work perfect.
So then the other one was just the new roller. Our asphalt finish paver roller is 20-some years
The
old,
vibe roller.
and it's at the end of its life. The drum this year's cracked and broke, and we were
Been
planning-
welding on it already.
We were planning on replacing the drum. It's not even available. It's discontinued. So we repaired the drum again. The roller's shot.
Is it pulling asphalt because you've been welding on it?
No,
Not yet, but still it's there.
it's shot. So that roller is one that it's,
Do you have to sign another 5-year lease on that grader, or can you do a shorter term?
On which grader?
You can probably set up any.
So that one will either be, you either turn it back in or you pay the balloon payment,
Yeah.
because it's under contract.
They have their guaranteed buyback, and they buy it back from us, but then we need to look at, like say, leasing another one, or these the graders, like Tyson was saying, on the equipment wise, the hours we put on them, they're hard because there's certain times that you have to have that amount and that, but then they don't get a lot of hours on them. So to us, you could go a while and they'd still be, you haven't put enough on there to have some major, now you can never say what's gonna happen, but they're not up in the
You know,
miles
just
for-
because you said that, you're gonna blow up something today.
is how we were looking at it, just to try to save because of the
Okay.
low hours.
We'll have that
Yeah,
as a
we'll
discussion.
work that out. Do you have anything else on that one before we go to landfill?
Not if you don't.
Okay, let's do it.
Where do I find landfill?
It says solid.
Solid waste.
Solid waste. On the A part of things, ask for one new employee there, a landfill manager.
Are you thinking of going back to the split, like the management that used to be out there? You had somebody over the hill and somebody over the office? Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, the problem we're having right now is we're trying to ship every bit of the office to me or to Tyson, because right now we have Dylan that's up on the hill. But we used to have compliance, regulatory compliance manager. That was a high-paid position. We had a environmental specialist that was a
Let's not
high-paid.
talk about that one. That one was a
It
full.
was a high-paid position. We had an engineer and an EIT all helping up there with projects, all these things. Right now, we have, our office person is helping with some of the things that we can try to help me out on regulatorily wise. Our assistant operations manager is just trying to manage the hill. There is problems because we have a lot of employees missing up there. We, out of 8, we have 4, so you got a 50% loss in employees up there running the hill. So we're trying to do all we can. We're using Road and Bridge to help with that. But I'm looking at somebody to have a little bit more of the, to
Compliance guidelines, environmental, engineering coordination.
that, yes, to help out.
And that's kind of how it was set up before, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you just want to go back to that model?
Yeah, that's one department that the cut was a little too heavy.
Well,
When they
and
were trimming.
Well,
the
and when that
fluff
happened, it was-
Got established.
it wasn't,
They got too deep.
We cut the fluff.
well, and it wasn't necessarily in fluff. I think it was
There's only one position that was flat.
normally what happened, well, what happened was more so due to personnel changes, that the way that we had personnel, you had backup personnel that were there, you had people that hadn't retired, you had people that being able to move that around, I think it didn't hurt as bad because you had a lot of experience. And now all of a sudden we're to a point where there's 2 or 3 that are really experienced. We have a whole bunch of brand new people and a whole bunch of other things, and it really highlights the
Yeah,
problems.
and it is true. That's what's,
I don't think it was necessarily, yeah, there was one position that, yeah, okay, we didn't need that one. We can change that around. But then the others, I think, was just more so out of just the organizational structure due to personalities and people that were there.
yeah.
For that landfill manager,
So that's the same pay grade as, our roads manager. We used to have a one up there that was a pay grade 15, that was the regulatory compliance, and we had a pay grade 13, I think it was, for our environmentalists. So, I mean, they were pretty high pay grades that, you know, besides the help from engineering. Right now, we don't have any, even, we used to have like a 50-50 split with an EIT or something
You need an
helping
EIT
us
back up there.
Like I say, we've been trying to cover that, but between me and Tyson, we have a lot more with engineering on roadside, with subdivisions, trying to keep up with them, that they're correct and don't become a problem for the county later.
Did Ryan review this one too?
That's pretty much all we had on the, oh, we do have a
On the retirement, we did add one more person. We got
Two.
one more that, well, we had one in there.
oh, added one more.
Added one more, we got one more that'll be eligible.
So we'll have 2 retiring out of the 4 remaining.
From the landfill.
So with retirements and open positions, we're just trying to, like I say, we're trying to work it. We've got a pay code set up, so that we can send Road and Bridge that direction and try to help.
And then we did add 2,000 of that separation payout line, just because
For turnover?
the revolving door up there.
We used to, we could cover that because you'd have higher paying salaries, but everybody's at minimum, so
Yep,
it
exactly.
doesn't work anymore.
What about the extra help line? Increased it $8,000.
That's, with the change in being able to work them 40 hours
For the season?
for the seasonal.
From
So
the
that's
5 to the
budgeting-
8.
Budgeting, instead of working the 29 hours, working 40 hours. And that's been a huge blessing. That's already paid huge dividends up there this year, being able to work that 10, 40 hours.
Okay.
Because we've been so shorthanded that they've been working McCammon and it's worked out. I don't know what we would have done without that blessing in disguise that come about.
Probably another discussion we need to have about free dump days in McCammon, but we'll do that at a different time.
Yeah, that's the hard thing right now, is even, that's a full discussion, but this McCammon, it is a great loss in, we've had, like last Saturday or something, it was like six people. We've got all that.
Wednesdays are the ones that I just don't know that we can justify it. So the last 2 Wednesdays, we've had 16 and 17, or 6, 2 Wednesdays ago and 17 last Wednesday. And we're manning it all day long.
We'll have that discussion.
I would be curious for an analysis on what it would save us to close down the dump 1 day a week. Instead of going 5 or 6 days a week, we go.
We only go 2.
He's
So in
talking-
this-
he's
Yeah,
talking-
or the main
No,
landfill.
The main
Talking to me.
landfill.
Oh,
Shut down Mondays.
That would affect city.
the problem with,
and
No, the
county
cities, you
jobs.
leave the cities and run the cities, but you shut the public.
the only thing I see with that is, you'll save a little bit on manpower, but we're so busy right now. I'd hate to see what, they're gonna come one day or the other, so if you're closed 1 day or 2 days or whatever, we already got lines down to the railroad tracks. I don't know how,
That's a discussion we
I'd
need
like
to
to see an
have.
analysis on that.
There needs to be some talk. I mean, the big thing is,
so your next part you have to really watch with that is what do you consider business? Is that just the city? 'Cause
'Cause if you
you
go
got a lot of
commercial-
construction
Yep.
going on right now that would,
That's a discussion we need to have.
well, and there needs to be
There needs to
discussion.
be some data
There
collected.
there needs to be some discussions too on some of those people that, our landfill, we don't have an automated system at all. And so the other thing too is there's a lot of landfills that they automate one lane to where you pull in, RFID tag scans it, it weighs it, you go through, you already have that vehicle that has an RFID tag with a known weight. You never talk to anybody and you can operate every single day.
So
It's just
with our
public.
3 and 5 year plan, we have plans if we can get through the expansion
Yeah.
this year and 2 and maybe 3 years looking at.
How much would it cost to do the RFID system he's talking about?
It'd be a lot because the way that,
How much is a lot?
I haven't even looked into
Well, right now, the problem we have,
Me and Brett looked at it a couple years ago, and it was over $500,000, because the way the scales are built, and the way everything's set up, you have to move some scales around and do some other stuff.
Part of me wonders if we don't slow down some of the remediation to get the automation, and do some of that.
Yeah, maybe a little bit, but with that consent order, you gotta be careful
Yeah.
how far we slow down that remediation.
I understand that.
We went through and looked at it, Brett and I, and this is a couple years ago, so costs changed, but we were talking about changing out to where you had another scale line that was put in, that was an automated scale line for all of the Pocatello trucks, opening that road up to where it was basically a 3-lane road going up one side, to where you have in the public, automated, and you just run through it. And yeah, it was $500,000 to put another scale in and to do a bunch of other stuff.
You
that
got
way.
40 minutes to finish up your department, so.
Sorry, I'll be quiet.
Yeah, we'll be quiet now. Sorry,
Talk
great
more
ideas.
about that.
we got the 2 retiring. Yeah, that's why we switched the extra help. Was the 2,000 was for the 40 hours, and I think that's all A-wise.
I don't know what questions are gonna be on the B.
B, we went through each line item, tried to figure out where we could cut. They're pretty close
Is the
to,
lease vehicle truck, is that a new one?
What?
Assuming you get the landfill manager, the lease vehicle, you have a truck for $7,500.
We already have that.
Where did it come from? Because it doesn't show up in the 2022 budget.
Are you looking at
There
solid
is 6
waste
months
or?
expenditures, it was a reallocation.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Any new leases on your equipment? Or are these
No.
all? Okay.
we moved one from solid waste to gas to energy. That's what we thought you were talking about.
Oh, you're talking new leases total?
Yeah.
No, the only thing we are working on lease-wise is, and I was hoping to have the final numbers today, but they haven't got them to me yet, is we're looking at going to 1 compactor instead of leasing 2. Going to 1 little bit bigger machine that can handle the tonnage we have.
Oh, deja vu. Did we have this conversation before?
Yeah, we went to Utah, 3 weeks ago and looked at this compactor, talked to them about their down rate, their uptime,
Their uptime's like 90%.
They're
Right now, our
93%.
uptime's like
60
60 maybe.
on the best
So-
machine.
We're looking at a different,
But I think
type of model.
with the lease amount we have with the 2 machines, it would cover the lease on 1 machine. I was hoping to have that number this morning.
If when you get that, will you kick it to us? Just because we'll have to include that in the clerk's recommendation if you want it.
so that's one thing we're looking at is the 2 leases versus 1 lease, but the bigger machine, your lease payment's still gonna be more.
I'm sorry, I just have to snicker at that one. I was all over that last year.
Well, another weird part is this is it's a whole different, kind of a sole source kind of deal that its drums are full width. It's not the 4 wheels that look like compacting. So with them models, you're looking at lucky if you could get one within a year.
They build it for you.
These ones are available.
And the compaction, they're guaranteeing the compaction rate will be up. If not, they'll buy the machine back from you. They're pretty impressive machines.
Who makes them?
Tana.
Cool.
So yeah, we're looking at that to try to save some time, and that would help us out a little bit with manpower
I was
and
gonna
stuff.
say, that
at the
should save
landfill.
you a body on the hill as well, shouldn't it? Okay. On the tire recovery, from 24 to 40,000, is that just the cost of
It's,
hauling those out?
well,
Well,
so it's a subcontractor, and the company's been bought out, and now the new company basically has
They're a
sold,
Yeah.
and they object. It's insane what they've done.
Yeah. I remember we talking about that. I just wanted to make sure
Yeah,
that's
so that's-
out of us.
Yeah, they've kinda got us
And
locked
hopefully with
into, we can't
With our
do.
fee adjustment, our tire intake will slow down just a little bit, but
Well, we've looked into, all the tire places in town and all around, and they look like they've did it almost the exact same as us, is cost of what it's, and 10% is where they're at.
Miscellaneous credit card fees, what's that?
Those are the fees that are charged. Landfill is the only one that takes the fees when somebody swipes their card. Everybody else, the customer absorbs the fees. So
So
we
why do we
actually
do
pay,
that? Why do we do that?
it's an enterprise fund.
Why does the landfill do that? Why don't they charge it to the customer like everybody else does?
We could, we just set it up that way for the sake of getting it implemented and people doing it.
Pass it
Yeah.
on to the customer.
Yeah, I'd have it. If you, when I go to the landfill, I make sure I take $5 with me. I mean, because you anticipate a fee, so I always have a $5 bill in my work truck. My wife thinks that it's funny because I got like 4 $5 bills just sitting in the ashtray. Well, that's the only reason is to go to landfill.
Your vendor, to see if they can get that.
Okay.
And will the 2 million on the remediation, that's just next phase, that's gonna work? Or is that just as good as we can guess?
Well, for a lot of the projects they want to implement in this remediation, it's like, 6,000, or $6 million or something, and so what I've tried to do with that is, we can't afford that kind of stuff. So what we're trying to do is little test pilots and see if they work. I've just put the 2 million because that's pretty close to where, once we do our water, testing and that kind of stuff. So this year, we have a couple pilot programs we're doing.
In your remediation there, does that include them doing all the testing or stuff like that? Or is that for us to do it, like having an EIT do it?
It's them doing it. We've tried a few times to do other things, and DQ, we could never keep compliant.
Well, what I'm saying is there's some of those tasks, I think, in that remediation side that if we brought an EIT in, because, I mean, there's enough other environmental remediation and other things compliancy of having that engineer in training, that there's tasks there that we could probably have them do that it wouldn't take all their time, it wouldn't take all that, but it would help reduce cost impact on that, and it would also give us some additional hours for that person to be very familiar with all the water testing, all the environmental stuff.
the monthly groundwater.
That would be a good thing, as long as you have somebody that's qualified.
Well, and that's why I say you'd have to have that.
We've had it before, and it wasn't a qualified person,
And
and
we weren't in compliance.
we had a lot of trouble with that. But
Most of your EITs are either civils or environmentals will be able to do it. And that's
Yeah.
why I say, is if we could find somebody like that, because then that would be,
How much would somebody like that cost?
so an EIT you typically runs,
what was it for, like, Korean?
yeah, well, she was like 45 or 54, something like
And
that.
I know Mike's gonna ask for one too.
Well, and that's what I'm saying is that person needs to be, because you could have,
45.
yeah, so right now you'd probably have to go into the 50s to start for an EIT right now to get somebody right out of school. If you could find one.
You could save quite a bit of money if we did that testing.
That's what we need to do.
If we want to pay for that engineer, let's take it out of.
Well, and what that does is that would give her or him, whoever that position is, they're gonna be, we need to have an EIT up there 75% of the time, no problem.
That was the problem we had before, where we like to try to make them be there for 50% of the time, and there, because we don't wanna go back into where we pay out of a different department for somebody that we never see.
See, and the whole thing though is those EITs right now, I can tell you, we gotta have it underneath the engineer, because you are not gonna get an EIT to come here, because they have to have their
Yeah.
hours manned by that engineer, because that's what sets them up to take their PE. And if they can't take that, they're not gonna come here, because that PE, I mean, you're going from making 50 to the day you get your PE to now you're making 100.
Yeah.
And that's why you do it.
And then what about your self-board liner? Is that just a swag or pretty solid?
Pretty solid.
Okay.
Yeah, that's taken on the project and the added cost of,
We'll have a real more solid number tomorrow.
A real more solid, kind
Just forward
of general
to-
swag.
that's kind of an engineer estimate. It's hard to know without that bid yet. Well, and it won't be tomorrow.
We're a week away from that.
Yeah, we're a week, we
Are we a
pushed
week
it back a
Oh,
week,
mhm.
because we wanted to keep as many people bidding as possible.
I just haven't looked at reserves, so I didn't know where we would be with all the projects. I'll have to see if we've actually got the cash to cover all that.
What's theirs showing on the cell floor? What's yours showing on the cell floor?
Stolen.
Do
Three
they
and a
have?
half?
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
but we were at the same.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if they had the rough draft before we got the engineered estimates.
Okay, gas system. Next page.
Well, there will be a little extra money spent in that area because of testings. We have a tier 1 permit renewal, 39,000.
Real quick, what did you do on your on-call? How'd you get 6,500 bucks for on-call differential?
I was gonna ask on that, was that, I had a note there that
Oh, the
I,
on-call differential. So when we met down in Ryan's and we
So
were
20 bucks a day?
20
or-
bucks.
Oh, no, that was the shift differential.
Yeah, so I did a kind of a area study on what others are doing, and it's roughly $100 a week on call. So I took the amount of weeks, the amount of guys, and that's, maybe it was 150 I figured.
I was gonna say 52 times 100 is 5,200?
So I did 125, sorry.
Okay. Okay. Did you do that anywhere else or just in here?
Just for so when we
Yes.
met down there and talked with
Okay.
Commissioner Tubby and you and Ryan, that was just
Mhm.
simply
Okay.
for the on-call for the gas
Okay,
energy system.
that's perfect. I just wondered if we're gonna keep it in there, we need to know
Yeah.
how it was calculated. Okay, I need to go to B, sorry.
So the one we did, so the landfill, we just moved the leased truck. So we have 2 trucks up there, but the landfill is paying for both of them, and the one's actually in the gas system, so we're just trying to be more transparent there.
Okay.
professional fees.
I don't know if you want to go over what we did with the 42400 change.
Oh, just moving it down to Western?
Yeah,
Makes sense.
just making that
Plus
cleaner
commission
too.
fees. I have a question. And real quick, I didn't catch this on the front page, but the admin fee is a percentage, so that won't necessarily be those same dollar amounts. It's 5%, I think, 5%.
We added each one of our budgets, we added a little bit for our city work too in there. The biggest differences on this one is in your capital. We're gonna have 305. We got blowers and Tyson's kind of on the gas system end of things.
So then, on the flare and the conditioning skid, They've got 2 blowers. Those, we just got one back from being rebuilt. They're starting to get to the end of their life. So we're looking to have to rebuild them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's,
Okay.
There's gonna be some more gas wells going into a new cell.
it'll be, cell 4 will be ready for some more horizontals.
What was the total, what did we make off the gas system total last year? How much were we paid by Idaho Power?
Lunch money?
Lunch money? Christy, I didn't mean to make you go down on that.
I don't have the total with me, but
Not much?
we're not a revenue, it's not a cost equals facility.
Right.
What we're hoping is with, projected, once we get the second motor, that's gonna help with that. But with our rec sales, we're looking at about 300,000 next year. And the next year it'll be about 4, 5, and it'll kinda go up like that till about 750 per year. But it's,
And I haven't done revenue projections yet, so.
so we're hoping that will help.
The rec sales, that's the carbon credits?
Yes.
Okay.
It's an expensive facility to run, very, very expensive.
But does it help us on the remediation side on the other side?
If you just lit the flares, it would do the same thing.
Thank you, Commissioner.
For $1 million less, is what I'm getting
Let's
at.
just light the flares. Let's be done.
Well,
So cut our losses.
Well, at this point, we've already made the investment.
so
You'll
I'd
never recapture your
I'd
investment.
like to run with the
You
second
won't.
engine. I've run some figures and it's gonna be closer to being cost neutral, I believe.
Well, for that
We'll just
year,
never catch up.
you'll never
But it's-
recapture, you'll never do that. And this
And
was the,
that's why I say just cut our losses and run, because if we're never gonna catch up, then we're gonna continue to grow further behind every year if we keep spending money on it. I'm willing to look at it for one more year and see if the other motor brings us closer, but at the same time,
Yes, so we have both engines right now, we just don't have the gas. So we are doing the tie-ins for the new wells. And we'll be online in a couple months, so hopefully we'll get 2 engines running and the gas will be there. The problem is it's the unknown. You don't know till you start pulling on them wells, how much gas we have. So, I mean, we had
Do
to
you
put
know
the
what the
second
total
engine in.
revenue was?
Hmm?
Do you know what the total revenue was for
I
the
can
gas
look it up.
system?
But I don't.
So until we start pulling, we won't know what our gas intake is to know if we can run both engines. The problem you have is if you can't run a certain kilowatt,
You're
Then-
not worth running.
you might as well not run at all. So that's why we've been alternating engines right now, because
what we should do is we should talk to Idaho Power and find out how much they are willing to give us for a buyout on the contract. Because the power rates that they have to buy it from us is really, really high and
Yeah.
costs them a lot of money. And what we should do is just see how much they would cost us to just pay it out and then salvage out the system. If you leave the wells, burn the flares.
so you have the wells, you're
Yeah,
gonna have to.
yeah.
You have
So
to
we
have
be
it
to
no
the
matter
flare.
what. The problem is the system does not, and this has been something I've said since day one coming in here, the system, you will never recapture your total investment.
then
Well-
why would we do it?
Because it's foo-foo.
It's environmentally friendly.
Environmentally,
Administration
Prior
thought it was a
administration.
great plan and that we would break even.
Yeah, I know.
Most,
right, let's move on.
Most places are going to a scrub system and selling the gas back to.
So,
Yeah, they turn it into their own diesel, it actually makes more money for them.
are there any capital items that if you had to reduce, you could? That would be. Or do you need them all? No. Just to help us try and find priorities. if we need to.
on the landfill, I think we need them all.
Okay.
I
So
don't
if we have
see
to
where
cut,
we can,
we'll visit with you.
the only one would be remediation,
Okay.
but there's a little bit of, that we're not
I'd see what we can do.
completely locked into.
Okay.
Noxious and mosquito.
Yep.
We'll go to noxious next.
Noxious.
I'm looking up the revenue, by the way.
No, that's fine. I
It
just,
should be behind it. Still, just down.
I might have just looked wrong. Oh, there it is. There it is. Skeeter and obnoxious weeds.
Why don't we have our overtime on
And you just want grade adjustments to your supervisor?
Yep, that's it.
You knew that her mother passed away.
there? We didn't get the 500 for overtime moved over.
And then the extra help line item, the increase is the same thing, just to cover the 40 hours.
Okay, but you also want 500 for overtime? Or not?
You know, I don't know if we left that because it was, we do comp time.
Yes, weed department try to comp them and they take it off. And
We'll just leave it the way it is.
So along with that, what's contract labor?
So,
That's for if we have to
Helicopter.
helicopter or
Okay,
something
okay.
like that.
Yeah, that's you, that's what it's been in the past, is the helicopter.
Helicopter? We got a drone. Why do we need a helicopter, man?
It holds a little more spray.
It's okay.
We're pretty yellow up and down the valley.
it's bad.
All that rain.
It's,
That's all I can say.
it's,
Well, that's where we're at with that is, our supervisors, you know, takes that and loses sleep over it, but there's BLM, there's forest, there's railroad, there's a lot of people that need to control their problems too. We're trying to control ours,
so
so.
BLM has applied for a grant. They may be coming to us to get with some grant information later on. They're trying to get some money so that it wouldn't really affect us too much other than coordinating to get the helicopter and the chemical lined up. That'd be about all that's gonna affect Bannock County, but they really are looking hard from Century, their corridor from Century to Ingham, and then Highway 30 from McCammon to Lava, because most of that ground's BLM, and they're really trying to.
So how
Do it
long,
and charge them.
how long until the noxious weed just becomes a weed? I mean,
Pretty yellow.
I hate to say that. How long have we been fighting Dyer's Road for?
At least since I've been here.
The only one of the things I have
We're not very good at it.
is our chemical will have to go a little bit up, and part of that is because of some of our county facilities, namely the event center. We're using quite a bit of the chemicals up there, and that's why we've asked for a little more in our
Well,
chemical
that
budget.
facility should be paying for those chemicals. I mean, that should be understood.
Well, we talked about that a couple of years ago, and they
Yeah.
said, it's county property.
Well, it is. I mean,
Well,
It's
it's
county and we're
true.
fine, we just need a little
The
more.
statute allows us to,
Well,
Pay
and to
for
tell
it.
you the truth, your noxious weeds, you should be dealing with the county property first. That's the whole thing that people, if,
that was the stance a while ago.
Yeah.
Okay. And then on the new four-wheeler,
So on the four-wheeler, we are looking really hard at right-sizing their fleet. We have way more than we need. Some of them are starting to get some age. So we want to get rid of 4 and buy 1 new one.
your four-wheelers.
Yes.
Before you sell them or do anything, check with the event center.
Yeah.
Because those four-wheelers, golf carts, they actually like getting, they don't want any more trucks. So they're saying,
We
wanting
might have
smaller
a
stuff.
side by
Yeah, and we will.
side or something
Same
like
thing
that.
with the mosquito department, we got some stuff we're wanting the right size, instead of have a building with the whole entire fleet that's just sitting.
Yeah.
Where,
That's where the drone came in, you know, it's getting rid of some of this stuff.
Yeah.
well, I think there was a habit of just buy one every year and just
And
put it in
then-
the shed. And
under capital, you've also got 17,000, because you want to put water to the shop.
So that's half of the cost.
and we have split that between mosquito and weed. The cost is, so we have that lower shed down there, there's no water in it. It's pretty tough to do anything with mosquito and weed without water.
With all the chemical.
So I did get a price from the city, got a couple swag guesses from plumbers on what it would take for them to do the tie-in, and that's where that 34,000 comes in.
Okay.
So we'd be tapping into the city water line
City
that goes up
water.
the hill.
We,
And that'd be an annual, not, I mean, have you
That was
included the
just-
cost of your monthly, where would you put that? That's, I mean, have you got a line there for utilities? Because you'd have to pay a
We
water
didn't
bill
have-
every
We
month.
didn't add that, so.
When are you thinking you'll do the project? Will we have next, how much water will we have to do next year? Will we have to do 9 months, 6 months? We
It'd
can do
be-
it next summer, 3 months.
Yeah, it wouldn't be till, I mean, if it got approved, we wouldn't do it till next spring, so you'll be looking at 6 months probably.
Okay. Do you want to get us the number of how much your water bill will have to go up?
yeah, it'll go down at the landfill and up there.
Yeah. And that, in the past, when I talked to them, they were looking at taking a huge water line in there, and I couldn't even figure it out, so I talked to the city and the plumbers were like, no, this is all you need.
Yeah.
No sense putting in a,
I'm not putting a fire hydrant in.
yeah.
We did drill a well for that place, but that was the dry hole well.
And we kept drilling.
Now we
drilling.
use it as a test location for the landfill. So they were
Fire
going
hydrant,
to,
that's what you use.
I think it was, what is it, about 6 years ago that, or 5, when we built that building, we went through the city and there was some complications between the city and the county on the cost of that, and so the county decided to drill a well instead of tapping into the city line. And then the well went 600 feet deep and it's dry. So now we're coming,
We could've
circling
tapped
back
in.
around to hook to the
We
city.
could have tapped in
Wrong
twice.
person witching.
Yeah.
Too much pride in the way is what.
Before we jump over to mosquito, noxious, or gas system had 860,000 in revenue last year, and we are at 450 rate, well, as of March. So, we'll see what difference that makes.
What we were trying to do with that is, where I was at with it when we kind of discussed back and forth, is even if you flare, you still have to pipe the wells, do all the well work to flare it off, and the cost of all the piping and different things. So if it would pay for itself and pay for all the pipe and be green and recycling.
And that's why we have it, it's on the part.
You would have discovered a new type of power source that would be possible.
If I was going into my own business, I would not go into gas to energy regeneration. I'll just say that.
Okay, mosquito?
I'd make diesel for the vehicles, that's what I'd do it for, actually.
Okay.
I say we need to look at selling at the
Scrub and,
scrubbing with the gas plant, right at the bottom of the hill. We just need to sell it to Intermountain Gas, but.
but now the millions we put into an electrical facility, you'd have to put that about same amount into a scrub facility. So we're just trying to get what we can get
I
done.
like the pipe and match there.
I like the Olympic torches burning you around. That's what I say. We need to have.
Build a big one with some artistic flair to it.
An old welder.
Wait a minute, that could be a new war memorial.
There you go.
Black Rock
Like the
Forge.
eternal flame.
So the bulk of the increase here is just the half of the 11,000, no, it's just the 11,000 for the vehicle lease.
Yeah, so
Is that the big?
we're looking to lease. We haven't had
So
one
that'll be a
there.
new lease.
That'll be a new lease.
That and the water, the other half of the water is the changes on this one.
I was just looking at,
You're looking at mosquito?
yeah,
Yes.
I was just looking at operating first. Okay.
So you did an increase in chemicals there. 75.
Huh?
Chemicals, you didn't increase any.
We didn't. I think that one's been,
Pretty solid, huh?
Well,
Well,
if you
It's
look
been
at the
high and
history
then-
of spending,
prices have gone up, but
even with the history of spending and
in '21 they spent 38,200,
we just,
and in '20 they spent 24,000. So.
we're trying to get to, so right now we're trying to get through a far
Some
as stock
inventory?
inventory.
We're trying to actually manage
Do you think that
that
75's a little
department
high?
and
No, because we're getting, so we had mosquito supervisor kind of project what he's gonna actually run, because we're starting to get through, by not purchasing much last year, we're starting to get through the backlog of chemical. So when we actually broke down what we're gonna potentially have to buy next year, that's probably gonna be real close to what we actually need moving forward. It's just,
So just make a note, we're running through inventory.
yeah.
Okay.
We're gonna have a rough year, I think, with, it's gonna get hot all of a sudden and we've had a whole ton of water.
Numbers are already starting to go up.
Have we had any indication of West Nile? Haven't found anything yet? One,
Thursday.
but not
Okay.
enough to,
It's, so the state, the numbers just barely. So I just found out before we come here, the state is not concerned with the number because it's so low. But we did get one mosquito that had a trace.
okay.
Okay, any other comments, questions?
No.
Well, thank you. Like I said, the other things that we've talked about, if you'll figure them out and turn them in, we'll talk about vehicle use and stuff.
No, it's a front page. Actually, put it in the front page.
Go through the process.
Alrighty.
Are they coming in? It's been lit.
Snowmobile, 11:30.
So if you guys give me any new information, if you'll provide that to Caitlin and I, then we
As soon
can
as I
take it.
get these numbers, the salesman that we were dealing with, he went on vacation, so.
we did find one that got contacted from the railroad, McCammon. We used that, we leased that section at the McCammon yard to put sand in and stuff. Nobody's even thought of it, because the last lease was a 20-year lease. Well, all of a sudden, here it comes back, so
It's due this year, so.
Okay, if you guys,
it's due before the end of the the calendar year, so it will need to be in this budget. It's $5,000 per year, and the last time we did an agreement with them, I think it was $5,000 for 20 years.
is that,
So that went up a little bit.
is that gonna be signed in 22?
So I haven't
or-
bring it before the commission yet because it's gonna be out of next year's budget.
November, right?
Let's negotiate.
Well, and if you can get me any of those lease documents, because I have to start reporting those in our financials starting this year. So I need any and all leases that you guys may have like that, so that we can determine if we have to report on it.
That's the only one I know of at the moment.
Copy of
We
leases.
might get another one sent to us that we,
Okay. Cool.
Make sure Trammell looks over them.